This is Ravi. I'm currently working as a project manager with ECS to say what is ECS. ECS is an engineering consulting firm. We have different areas of expertise: geotechnical engineering, construction materials testing, private provider inspections, permitting strategies, plans review, building size, sciences, and I think we are also into threshold inspections, special inspections, and many more to say. And right now, I have my guest speakers, Jay Trena and David Beers. David Beers is our subsidiary regional manager with ECS, and he's also the special inspector with the state of Florida. And he is the man behind ECS Florida's private provider inspections division. And we have another guest, Jay Trena. Jay Trena is currently working as a code compliance slash life safety slash fire safety consultant with our ECS. And previously, he was ex head of new construction division, chief of new construction division, fire marshal's office, Tampa. He have extensive experience that he brought on board, and we're going to talk more and more and get squeeze as much as we can, because many people might not know how private provider inspections are code compliances work in detail. So we're going to decode it. And to get started, Dave, I have a quick question. What is PPI? What is code compliance?
Yeah, that's not a broad question at all, is it? So the shortest answer is that the average municipality is charged with enforcing the building code throughout its jurisdiction and keeping up with demand of construction. So in response to a natural disaster back in 1992, which was Hurricane Andrew, Florida legislation was passed that effectively encouraged the design community, be it engineers and architects, to participate in code enforcement, basically as a splint to keep things moving at the municipal level. And as the years have gone by, and as it is with many laws, we don't go backwards. Laws just, they begin to, they have a tendency to grow, change, whatever the case is, but they stay on the book. So what's happened, what started in 1992 has morphed into what it is today, which is effectively Florida Statute 553.791, which is a continued initiative to aid the building department in facilitating code enforcement. Everybody's aware of the fact that there's been a tremendous amount of growth in the Tampa area and the broader region, and a municipality's ability to cover that area, it's very difficult. And so we are a lot of times seen as a way around the building department, but we're really not. We are an adjunct to the building department. We're here to help them facilitate construction. Being a private provider, we are heavily staffed with both traditionally certified folks, as well as those design professionals that were encouraged from the very beginning and the purpose of the legislation. So that's a long way of saying a private provider is someone that can basically assist in the code enforcement element and bring efficiencies to the table that wouldn't otherwise be realized with the amount of construction and the current staff levels at the municipal level. So that's a broad way to answer that question, but that pretty much sums it up.
Got it. Do you have anything to explain about municipality structure or anything? Or
the municipal structure is, it's pretty wild, the municipal structure, because, you talk to the average person, and I know not everybody's the average person here, but most folks will say, well, I got to go down to the building department to get my permit. And the building department is seen as almost this all-encompassing umbrella that the building that they're walking into for City of Tampa or Hillsborough County or the broader area, I got to go down to the building department. Well, when it's in the name of it, it says building department. They often overlook the fact that there are other departments, and represented right here, of course, is life safety, which is a completely separate department from the building department as a whole. And then you also have elements of zoning, utilities, natural resources, historical preservation. These are all different departments. And one of the elements of knowing the municipal structure is that this private provider element pertains to the building department, which is what's considered as your trades, your building, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. Not necessarily, or I should say, not including the life safety element, which is why Jay is so valuable in having him here, as well as zoning, utilities, natural resources. Those are all what is considered to be other government elements, or you have to, when you're going for new construction, or if you're rehabilitating old construction, permits are required for all departments, not just the building department. So you have to have approval from zoning, you have to have approval from natural resources, and so on and so forth. So the Florida Building Code pertaining to the inspections related to private provider, that's where I'm focused on. And a lot of times folks will see a municipal structure and say, well, the building department is the all-encompassing element. It's actually not. And knowing that helps you get the best use out of private provider. And that's why I think that's an important question and answer right there.
Got it. Got it. And I want to shift it a little bit. Jay, I think I gave a small intro about you. Do you mind sharing your bio, who you are, and your background? I know some, but I want to know more about you, and because you have extensive experience in it, right? So yeah.
Yeah, so I grew up in Tampa Bay area, and I worked for Tampa Fire Rescue for almost 30 years. And throughout that career, very early on in my career, I went onto the fire marshal's office and went into inspections and started learning as much as I could early in my career, and was blessed and ended up being promoted and all the way to chief of new construction. And during that venture, working for City of Tampa, it's one of the biggest municipalities we have in Florida. You got Tampa, Miami, and because of that, I was able to experience multiple mixed occupancies, and not just being an inspector, but overseeing the operations and the protocols and training the inspectors, and a variety of any kind of issue that came up had to go through my desk. So I was able to have experience, any kind of hiccups in construction or code compliance or alternative design with high rises and mixed occupancy. One of my ventures was Conrack Airport. That project was a $1 billion project. And I was able to walk from the beginning to the end, as the chief of the new construction division through that project as well. Another good experience that I was fortunate opportunity is the codes has changed over the years, and it would allow performance-based design for building and fire. And my office is right next to the building official. So as projects came in and the new difficulties, architectural engineers have been choosing more and more to go to that alternative design. Well, that was one of my duties, was to review fire protection engineering designs of alternative designs next to the building official and approve or disapprove. And throughout the years, we were seeing tons and tons of different designs for any kind of project, from a small, 1 or 2 story building to a 39-story high-rise building, and see these AMRs and review them and approve or disapprove. We had the duty and to either accept it or not accept it. And one of the things, when we did not accept it, we were able to try to give avenues of what we're looking for, and go back and forth with the engineer of record of what we believe would be acceptable. Even though it's an alternative design, signed and sealed, we still had we still had the ultimate say of yes or no. And some of these designs were far-fetched, and we going back and forth with the building official, we felt, this really wouldn't work, and we would ask for a different avenue and work back and forth to get to a solution that we all can feel comfortable that's an alternative solution for a descriptive code and fire and building. So Yeah.
Got it.
You know,
So
and I wanted to dive in there too to what Jay was saying, and you know, one of the most important things that I'd like for folks to understand is just exactly how valuable what Jay has between his ears is to the greater Tampa Bay area and beyond. Is that many design professionals have questions related to either field changes, uh, you know, during construction, or maybe during the design phase that they're going to be looking for some advice. And a lot of times, calling a municipality is this is not a dig on a municipality. You know, let's be fair to all municipalities are stocked with good people, and they have their challenges associated with having extreme workloads and a diminishing pool of talent. Now, imagine having a design question and calling a municipality right now. If you were able to get through, which understandably you'd have your challenges, you're not going to get the level of attention needed to address some of these higher end thought requiring discussions, especially when it comes to life safety. That's one of the biggest benefits that Jay is legitimately a phone call away or a text away in the sense that, you know, hey, I don't know what we're going to do with X, Y, and Z. Jay, can you take a look at this? And 15 minutes later, not only do you have an answer, but you have a path forward. The value associated with that is huge. And it's not a shameless plug. It's more of a, hey, let's get that word out there in the sense that he's available. And he's got 24 years of experience locked into that head of his, you know. And so it's amazing to think that that's available just for, you know, regular everyday. That's kind of cool to me. Jay's kind of a C grade celebrity.
That's right. That's right. So to add on to this, and again, I want to ask a basic question here. What is fire safety and what is life safety?
fire safety and life safety really is, you have the Florida Building Code, the FBC, but in NFPA, you got one and you got 101, and one adopts hundreds of different codes. And there's different situations for different types of occupancies. And it all starts from site and in the location of the building to water supply, how much water demand and site access to the building, all the way to construction, all the way to the end, with firewalls, fire occupant loads, mixed occupancy. A lot of the same codes are in fire and building, but with fire, the details get extreme when it goes to the special NFPAs per the occupancy type, and that's where it goes far beyond the FBC. All these codes, for instance, like you got special codes for different occupancies for animal facilities and then hospitals and hangars and storage facilities and commodities and all these special situations. They refer you to a reference of a book that we have to go to. So there's so many different components that come that's above and beyond the FBC that applies to fire and life safety.
Got it. Does the regulations varies from county to county or city to city in the state of Florida?
The state of Florida adopts 1 and 101, and then NFPA 1 and Chapter 2 in publications, it adopts the books and the references. So the state of Florida is all the same, the references.
Got
Hey,
it.
are you one of those people that you read that book from front to back cover?
Yeah.
Might be the one. Yeah. So Dave, I have this question. Has private provider has always been an option? Because in the recent times, it is gaining a lot of popularity than the past. So does the Florida state recently enabled the option, or this is existing for years? I just wanted to know.
Yeah, no, it's a great question in the sense that, there's a lot of times that I've been approached and asked, well, hey, wait a second, private provider is only accepted in certain portions of Florida, and many jurisdictions don't allow private provider. And that's an understandable assumption simply because of the fact that that's the way it was right up until June 1st, or July 1st, I'm sorry, July 1st of 2019. Legislation changed the Florida statute that took the decision to use private provider out of the municipality's hands and put it in the hands of the owner. So effectively, in July of 2019, the legislation changed that allows owners or an owner's builder with the owner's permission. So I'm kind of mincing words there, but owners effectively are developers. If they want to utilize private provider, they can. And so it is statewide. It is driven by the legislation, and it is, I will say this, for it, every owner, developer, or developer's contractor is required to verify the qualifications and is required to verify the insurance capacity of a private provider. So just because you can use a private provider doesn't mean that every private provider has been vetted by a municipality. It's very important to make that distinction, that effectively municipalities are saying, okay, if you're going to use private provider, that's fine. You can't come back to us for you picking your private provider. You still have the responsibility to vet the company that you're hiring. And that's an important distinction, that we don't want to put it out there that, sure, private providers, good to go across the board. Not all private providers are qualified. You're going to make sure that insurance requirements and actual qualifications are met.
Got it. And can private provider perform all kinds of inspections, or are there any exceptions that we cannot perform?
Yeah. Now, see, that's a loaded question, and so and we get asked that question quite a bit. That I have setback issues. Can you help me with that? Can you help me with my fence permit? Well, land development, even seawalls, land development code is a good example of those inspections that private providers have no jurisdiction over. Basically, when you have elements on a given site that are governed by zoning, utilities, land development code, natural resources, historical preservation, those are basically considered other governmental approvals that are necessary prior to even going for a permit application. So a lot of times I'll get asked, hey, can you do civil site inspections? Well, we certainly can, but the municipality does not have to listen to us. So it may turn out to be a waste of money. So I would love to tell you that every jurisdiction behaves the same, but they don't. There's over 460 different municipalities over the entire state of Florida, and at any given point in time, even the given municipality may change their mind. As a whole, though, that's a good blanket statement, is that other governmental entities, their associated inspections are not part of the Florida statute and what a private provider can do. That said, there's exceptions to every rule. And even here in Hillsborough County, we're being asked to look at subsurface utilities that are far beyond the footprint of the building. So, take that answer with a grain of salt. Everything I just said could be completely blown up on another project.
Got it. So can private providers also review civil plans?
Well, yeah. So we can review them, and we can comment on everything building related. But anything that is not building related, it's going to fall right back to those other governmental approvals. The zoning group is always going to weigh in on setbacks, density, actual construction type. The utility department is always going to weigh in on the sanitary, water, fire connection. But Jay actually can speak more to that than I can. But there's those elements.
Got it. So Jay, this question is for you. What are the challenges in fire plan review?
So there's many different challenges for fire plan review. One of them is just a lot of the codes in MFA do not align with the Florida Building Code. So when you have an architect do a design, a lot of times they're focused on the building code, but miss the challenges of meeting the fire code, because there's sometimes in instances where we're more stringent. When you're doing a lot of these high rises, we have different allowances for stairway. We have a formula for stairway width, and some of the occupant load calculations are different. And on these large amenity decks, that like pool decks, don't match up with fire and building code, and that could be a problem with how they design the door width and the stair width for those large amenity decks. When you get into the specialties of some of these buildings with storage and commodities and all that, it can get kind of confusing too. So basically aligning a lot of these codes. You'll come in line every once in a while with some really good architects where they'll do their life safety plan and they'll have a column for FBC and a column for NFPA, and it shows and it's designed for the most stringent. But the challenge is just keeping them in line and knowing both codes, when you have a designer coming in and designing some of these large buildings.
And how often do those two conflict, Jay? Because, I've seen many times when I'll be approached with a question of, well, it says this in the Florida Building Code, but it says this in the NFPA. Why would one take precedence over the other? That's a real common issue that gets brought up during the design.
Well, in NFPA 1, it simply states most stringent applies, and they really need to pay attention to both, and the most stringent of both codes will apply. And funny enough, going through the building code a lot more these days, being a consultant with a private provider, there's actually more than I've seen. Some of these code references in the FPC tells you to go to NFPA,
right?
And for these designs, but there can be quite a bit of differences, and sometimes you'll see where FPC is more stringent than the fire code in some instances too. So,
and just to kind of keep that element of the conversation going, when there are differences and you get a design team that is midstream, okay, construction, we're halfway done, maybe even further up, and there's different construction materials that show up every day. And when presented with a different, like back in the day, you remember we had all these conversations about sprayed, applied, fire-resistant material versus intumescent paint. And I remember going back to the city of Tampa all the time saying, oh, I hear there's this great paint and this intumescent paint. Can we use this? And it was like, well, that's an alternative means and methods. And it was a request. How does a municipality keep up with the changes in construction technology, with the new materials that are out there? What is that evaluation process like?
Well, I mean, when I say that seed, it's just a lot of research. Like for instance, you talk about intumescent paint, we had to sit down and see what these manufacturers, how do they apply it? And a lot of these times, these engineers would come in with the intumescent paint design, and it was just that, and they'll sign a seal, but there's no direction on the manufacturer specs. And so we look at these, and it's like, okay, on this plan, we want you to follow the humidity levels. Some of these paints, there's a certain humidity level, and we live in Florida, so that's what some of like example of a disapproval we had in some of these. We want you to provide details on the humidity level and how you're going to achieve that, and how you're going to achieve that per the manufacturer specs. And then a lot of times we'll ask for a third party, for a private provider to inspect these, because we want a special inspector to make sure you're complying with these manufacturer specs to applying these intermittent paints. So it was it challenging. A lot of municipalities didn't touch it for a while, but spending time on the details of the product alone, on what the capabilities are and the certain thickness levels, how much to apply to get a certain fire rating, is just spending time looking at the manufacturers and learning, and then allowing, apply all these details, and it's backed by an engineer judgment as well too. So
yeah, I think what really shines through in what you're talking about there is that the going private provider does not mean the absence of a municipality. It really means more of a collaborative effort in trying to find that supplementation element while simultaneously giving the client the field efficiency that they need to turn and burn. So, it's really kind of an interesting dichotomy that, I see a lot of times folks see private provider as the antithesis of the building department, or okay, well, I can't get what I want from the building department, let me go in the private sector. And a lot of times that turns out to be really not the case. It's more of trying to find you get the efficiency, but you still have that collaborative element to get those alternative means and methods. And I think that's really going to become more prevalent as we advance in building materials. But anyways, Robbie, I'm taking all your spotlight there.
That's fine. That's fine. You're good. So while you're talking about that, fire safety, life safety, okay, can a private provider inspector or PPI perform those inspections instead of fire marshal?
Okay, so if you don't mind, Jay, I'm gonna steal some of your thunder now. So the short answer is no.
Okay.
But now, what are we seeing though? And this is the part where I'm going to get a little controversial here. At the end of the day, the major problem that we are contending with, and this is a more of a societal issue, but we'll keep it here local. Municipalities have the same hiring woes that everybody in the private sector is having right now. And the construction industry is hot. And as a direct result, finding good employees is difficult. Municipalities also have their own, call them scalable hiring practices that struggle in an inflationary cycle. Now, we just went through one of the more heightened levels of inflation cycle where the cost of living, the COLA increases in a lot of people's paychecks probably exceeded the merit increases. And that's a big deal because municipalities are going to struggle in this particular department. And just imagine a diminishing talent pool and a struggle to hire as it is, pile on top of that, having to stick within a certain hiring range and not being able to compete as much in the private sector. So that puts the municipality at an extreme disadvantage to a certain extent. Now, just imagine we're looking right here at an example of what happens here is that Jay Trena is while he's joined us, he has left the municipality, and backfilling Jay's position at the municipal level is not an easy task. Though I think that City of Tampa is doing an admirable job of backfilling his position. Bottom line is this. I'm saying all that to say that municipalities are going to struggle to keep up with construction demand as is. Heap on the fact that there is a diminishing talent pool by which to choose from, the municipality is going to continue to struggle to keep up. I think that answers the question that it's only a matter of time before it moves in the privatized direction. I could fall on either side of that argument, honestly. But you know, that being said, it is not currently privatized, but that doesn't mean that you don't want to have somebody on site with that knowledge. So for that reason, we partnered up with Jay because we wanted to be prepared ahead of the time, just because it's good to have that knowledge base. But anyways, Jay, for what level I didn't steal from you, take it from there.
Okay, before you answer that question, let me ask this. Probably this might make more sense. Generally, how much time it takes for a general contractor to fix the deficiencies caught by a fire marshal? And what is the best solution here?
So it can take quite some time because once the municipality give you the deficiencies, it goes back to the architect, and then they gotta apply the code sections, and a lot of times there's an interpretation issue there. So you know, communicating back and forth with municipality is not the easiest thing because they're just so busy and right. Staff is low. So sometimes getting back to them in the beginning, going back and forth is a challenge as well. And then applying that to the design, it can take some time. I'll give an example, like with ECS, private provider building plan review, but the client opted to a very large apartment complex here in the city of Tampa, and they opted to hire ECS for both plan reviews for a fire preliminary plan review. And during that plan review, we did a building, but I did a fire, and I found 40 comments, and some of those comments were major. That they're banking on phasing Type 5 construction, horizontal exits, 2-hour fire rated walls. Well, they're banking on phasing and turning over these units at a certain time, utilizing horizontal exits. And when I reviewed it, they had, I believe it was 5 phases Well, three of them were incorrect because each and every phase has to meet life safety in itself. Um, Standpipe connections and common path and total travel and exit width.
Right.
And three of the phases didn't meet life safety. So one of the 40 comments was their phasing dramatically changed in this again before we went to the fire marshal's office. Now, and I caught a lot of big ticket items. And then after it went through our review and went to the city, matter of fact, I just saw it back here recently, and it had 4 comments from the city, and there were 4 minor comments. So out of the 40, they found 4, and then I was still at that opportunity. I was there able to be that representative, that owner representative, and help them go over these 4 minor comments that they had before they presented it back to the city.
So you can be a representative, owner's representative, although we cannot perform that inspection, but you can perform the advocacy.
There we go.
Yeah. So it seems like so when I retired last year from the city of Tampa, I started my own consulting company. And then after about 7-8 months talking with David, it just felt like it was a good fit for me to come, and being here, it is a great fit. And so, but a lot of my work and clients, I started out doing a pre-plan review or going there and walking these projects, and NFPA 241 is safeguards doing construction. Going there and looking at the site, preventing these sites not to get shut down for the fire marshal, because the fire marshal will go there, your fire department access, your access roads are not graveled, your standpipes, your temporary stairwells are not there. Looking at that, and as the project go on, it seems like I've been stepping into a bigger role as an owner rep, like going to the meetings with them, with the fire marshal, with the construction team. And one of my projects with ECS now was with the Midtown project is I'm acting as an owner rep, meeting with the fire marshal through them, walking with the fire marshal, walking before going through the project, trying to see where they're at as their delivery date, looking at the delivery date. It's like, guys, you're not even close. I know they're going to be looking at all this. And they're realizing that the delivery delayed. So the sooner you go and know the delivery date, you can kind of gauge. It's like, guys, you're closer. You're not even close. Helping to get through that. And then when the fire marshal is scheduled to go on site, it seems like most of these projects are calling, hey, now I want you to walk with the fire marshal, because if they find something and it's their interpretation, to see if their interpretation is truly a descriptive code, or is it just a younger inspector calling out a bunch of stuff because he's just not aware of aware of the exact code interpretation. He's asking to go above and beyond. So walking with inspectors doing this, and if they do catch something, is their interpretation correct, where I can talk their language, and sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't. And the beauty of that is that a fire inspector is going to require something, and he said, you got to meet this code, you need to do this. But when I look at it now that I'm on the private side, I can say, hey, yes, you got to meet this code, but I can give you avenues of different solutions how to meet that, where the fire inspector says that you need to meet this and leaves. Well, now I'm on site. It's like, okay, we can meet this, and there's 2 different ways. And then I'm looking at it not because of a code, as a code compliance, but I'm looking as a cost effective. Like, what's the least cost effective to meet code? As a private provider, I'm helping our ECS clients look at it and say, okay, let's look at this avenue, because this is going to be a little bit cheaper, and you're going to meet the minimum code, descriptive code. So
think about what Jay just said there, and believe me, I'm sitting here listening to him talk, and it's easy for me to sit there and get lost in some of his words, because at the end of the day, Jay, speaking NFPA almost feels like its own language, or at least a dialect. And so it seems like Jay's job is almost, and Jay and I's relationship dates back before, obviously, him being here at ECS. And one of the things that I learned very quickly about not just Jay, but fire marshals in general, it's almost their job to predict the future and look at it as disastrously as humanly possible. So it's fun to listen to Jay talk, but what's even more fun is to watch him get in the same room with another person who speaks fluent NFPA. So, the real benefit here is that Jay is, and here's the controversial tagline. Jay is a nerd. He is an NFPA nerd. And so what happens when you get him in the same room with another NFPA fire marshal, they speak a completely different level of understanding of being able to see the future and understanding the implementation of life safety. The benefits associated with that, it's fun to watch them go, but it's also more fun to see how much it puts everybody at ease. Because I want you to imagine being an expert in FPA and also always thinking about the future, and then being charged with protecting an entire community through construction. Imagine having that job every day. And that's what Jay did for 24 years. So when you have somebody who understands the code and understands the true tragic nature of disaster, and then having to go at the construction elements and try to consult from that perspective, the level of issues that can be staved off simply by having somebody who speaks that language is truly worth its weight in gold. How's that for a promotion speech there, Jay? My gosh. Don't tell your family I said all this stuff.
Hold on, let me put on my nerd glasses.
Yeah. So while we are talking about this, what are the most common deficiencies that you observe, Jay?
I mean, from all the way from design to development, just fire department access. There's a lot of different interpretations of how common path is met. We see that in different applications, and then that affects the layout of your. For exit, you have exit access, you got exit, and you got exit discharge. Knowing what your exit is, and then and then meeting the common path, like if when you have a high rise and you have a bunch of tenants in an office building, your exit access is the door out of that tenant space, but your exit's not till you get to the stairwell. Mm-hmm. So just understanding how do you meet common path in that aspect, and then in 241, during construction, they're not meeting, once they get to a certain level, they need to do temporary standpipes and temporary handrails. And then once you have the shell of the building, you got your stairwell has to be enclosed. And a lot of times, if a fire marshal goes there for complaining and sees that you have your shell and you have an open stairwell, your project shut down. I had to do it, unfortunately, multiple times during my career. You go to the project midway through, and now that shuts down a project for sometimes a month. Unfortunately, that's a lot of money. And
if you talk to the average construction superintendent, and just about every single superintendent I've ever come across will be able to assign a daily value of construction, and on an average high-rise job, you're probably looking at anywhere between $250,000 to sometimes even, $500,000 a week of fees associated with. So shutting down for just one day is crippling to a job. Time truly is of the essence when it comes to these construction schedules. And so, there again, I'm just pointing right back at having, someone like Jay around, to where just imagine being a superintendent and having a $150,000 a day fee hanging over your head and not being able to get a hold of somebody at the municipality. And again, it's nothing that the municipality is doing wrong. It's just, I need an answer and I need it now. And so anyways, that feels like a shameless plug, and we're trying to stay away from
so
that.
with the given scenario, what is the best time to engage a consultant like you to have a hassle-free project delivery?
A hassle-free project delivery, I don't even want to sign on to that.
There's no hassle-free. There's no hassle-free, but there's help and guidance, definitely. And the earliest, I'm in a couple of projects now with ECS on design and development with the design team. So you're gonna start
working from the design phase to completion of the construction.
That's
That's how it works.
I'm on a couple projects right now with that, and so it can be at any time. It could be design and development. It could be when you present your plans for your private provider review, and then you do a fire preliminary review.
Mhm.
During construction, look at the site at the beginning. Are you meeting fire department access? If the fire inspector drives by, they're going to shut us down, or a lot of times these large Type 5 construction projects,
Mhm.
and if you 241, you got to have your water supply before any combustibles.
Mhm.
A lot of times they don't, and they come in and they didn't realize, and they don't have a fire underground permit. That's where being a fire consultant representative. Hey, guys, realize we need to get these steps because this is going to happen if you don't. During construction, you're getting your closer to your architectural fire finals, walking to see where you're at and during the finals. So it's all throughout the whole phase of from start to finish. Any point is fine, but obviously the earlier the better.
Got it. Got it.
Yeah,
So,
and to kind of dogpile on that just a little bit is that not only is the sooner the better, but before you would think, I would recommend, even if it's not just to discuss ins and outs of the construction, but to have a good, solid permitting strategy. A lot of times, the permitting strategy is overlooked simply because of the fact that you go on the mental thought that, okay, well, I've got this development of any different size. I'm going to go get my permit and I'm going to go ahead and start construction. And to think of the different mechanisms at a municipal level that are available to you, be it a phased approach or having in City of Tampa, to me, the City of Tampa offers some of the most versatile tools with partial certificates of occupancy and being able to divide a given building up. That's not common. Most municipalities, you're all or nothing. So having a good permitting strategy not only gives you the best bang for the buck using a private provider, but I've watched Jay do his work when it comes to establishing a permitting strategy that allows money to start flowing for a developer significantly earlier than if you were going to do a one and done thing. So it's a very powerful mechanism available.
got it. Got it. And while we are talking about this, how much time can be saved using a private provider on any
You
given
know,
project?
I get asked this question a lot, and as a rule of thumb, I
Mhm.
like to say between 4 to 6 weeks per
Wow.
every 12 months of construction.
Wow.
Now, it is truly dependent on the quality. It's dependent on the knowledge base of the superintendent. I'll put it to you this way: private provider is a power tool. If
Mhm.
you don't know how to use a power tool, it doesn't matter how great that tool is. It could be a Makita, it could be Ryobi, it doesn't matter. But if you have, I've seen superintendents, you could take two separate jobs that are the identical, be it they're both self-storage units, they're both, I don't know, car washes, whatever the case is. I've seen one car wash go, and finish a month before another car wash. Whereas I've seen private provider be used primarily as a tool to just keep a job on track, meaning it was going to be very late because of the quality of the superintendents. For any of the superintendents that ever see this clip again, I'm not here to throw mud at you. All I'm saying is that if you know how to use private provider correctly, you're going to crank through your project. If you're disorganized and looking for, an easy way to get around the municipality, I don't think you're going to get what you're looking for out of a private provider. The goal is to really utilize it for what its intended purpose is, which is again to provide concierge code compliance. Not necessarily a means to get around code compliance, but a way to get it quicker. The municipalities would love to be quicker if they could, but their volume is what it is. So private provider is a means to get that speed, ideally. And so hopefully I've answered the question there. It's a difficult question to answer, but I've seen it really accelerate a project schedule. I've
Got it.
also seen it save a project schedule. Rarely have I seen it, if at all, seen it add time to a schedule. I've never seen a project get worse because of hiring a private provider.
Uh, Thanks for answering that question in terms of time. What about the money? Is private provider super expensive to engage? How does it work?
Well, it depends if Jay's on it or not. Jay's super expensive. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No, the reality is that time is money. So hiring a private provider is going to be different in each jurisdiction. Some jurisdictions offer deep permit fee discounts.
Yep.
Hillsborough County, I think, is one of the largest ones. It's a 80% discount on permitting fees. City of Tampa, depending if it's in a flood zone or not, ranges between 15 and 30%. City of St. Pete, I believe, is 50. A lot of municipalities, it's 50%. Some municipalities will charge just a flat fee. I think Pasco County will charge just a flat fee if you use private provider, and greatly diminishes their permitting costs. I don't really like to point to the discounts on permitting as the primary means to save money, basically because of what I was saying earlier, is that if it's a 24-month construction schedule and you're going to save 2 months, a general contractor assigns a line item on their bid to general conditions, be it for insurance, having a trailer on site, having certain personnel available, whatever the case is. If you can go ahead and diminish general conditions by 2 months, I mean, that's going to pay for any private provider service 5 times over. But if you're also able to start generating income for the intended purpose of the development, there's also a found fee as well. So rarely, but sometimes it does happen, I've encouraged developers to let their subcontractors know that, hey, we're using private provider on this job site in case you've if you've built into your bid that there's going to be some standby time associated with waiting for an inspector. We'll do, I tell the developers to let their subcontractors know, as a courtesy to you, we are hiring private provider. As soon as you can hang it, they can look at it. Maybe you want to cut us a break too. I've seen it work sometimes, and that's completely offset our fees. But I wouldn't say that that's all the time. But yes, that's definitely happened in the past.
Got it. And going back to Jay, I know we spoke about that. Coming to fire safety and life safety, we cannot perform the inspection, but we can perform the advocacy, consultancy. We can act as a consultant. Are there any other organizations currently in the market offering this kind of service?
So there's really none that I know of, and David is really a pioneer, always trying to do what he can to provide a better customer service experience in a total package solution. And so I believe David is really the pioneer of this. There's no one I know that's offering this at all. Because remember, private provider inspections are building inspections, and as far as I know, there's absolutely no one that's offering a fire consultant with their private provider, having to help them hold their hand in different situations and looking at things, and and being a representative there. There's no one I know in the market as of right now that's doing anything like this.
Okay. So people have to count on you for the entire state of Florida.
That's right. You nailed it.
Well, what they got to come with us with ECS.
Yeah.
That's right. Can't stay away from the shameless plugs forever, right?
Great. And
we know we have competition, but Jay, you're right. We're trying to basically find the problems that we see from our existing clients. Everything that we're doing here is to look towards trying to fix their problems.
Yeah.
When you see a consistent issue in the field, please go for it.
So one of the projects I'm on now, it's another private provider, and I'm acting as the consultant, helping them get through the project. And it's a high rise, and there's another private provider that had me come in late in the project because they're needing help. So that just gives you an example of how beneficial it is if you come with a total solution with ECS.
Total solution with
Yeah.
ECS. Got it. And if I want you to share some permitting strategies, what do you share? I want to
Yeah.
get these strategies from both of you, from both of your perspectives. So anyone can take first.
Yeah, well, I mean, when it comes to permitting strategies, it really, you have to begin with the end in mind. And a lot of our clients, again, developing in Florida, a lot of folks are coming from out of town. And folks that are not from Florida quickly realize that Florida is a weird state, very litigious. We've got a lot of elements to our region that's proprietary to Florida. That's a nice way of saying we're crazy. And the reality is, having a good permitting strategy, be it finding a way to secure your other government approvals prior to securing a building permit or even applying for a building permit. Folks from other parts of the country may not even be aware that that's something that needs to be done. And if there is a portfolio, there's a permit strategy associated with that. If it's just a build out and the change, and there is no change of use of the property, there's early start programs. There's a whole range of issues. It's so difficult to answer this question with any blanket statement other than I promise everybody who hears this answer that there are more mechanisms available to you than you're aware. And to assume that you just got to go get your permit and that's the end of it, that could be a mistake. Also, try to understand too that a municipality is overtaxed. They are filled with people who don't have the time to truly look at your project and the nuances of your project. If there's something unique to your project that may not be apparent during the traditional review process, you're only going to find out about what you could have done. It's so important to get that consulting up front. And again, even if it's not ECS, consult someone for the permitting strategy because there's more mechanisms available than meets the eye. But I don't know if that tees you up well or not, Jay. Take it from there.
Yeah, it's just knowing to pull some of these permits early, making sure you have your 61 G15 rules for your sprinkler system on your architectural plans. That's saving time because a lot of times they'll come in and they'll go to permitting and then they don't have that, and they don't even know what engineer they're going to go with, and then that takes some time to so knowing that's one of the things I'll say. Okay, do you have your engineer design on your architectural plan? There's a state statute for that. And then once you get your permit, okay, are we pulling our fire underground right now, ready to go? A lot of times they forget about that or they wait and then they pull it. Now they got to wait a month to get the permit attained, and now their project is delayed. So knowing what permits to pull early at a timely fashion, and then working through the whole process.
Got it. Can you tell or suggest top 5 mistakes to avoid?
Top 5 mistakes of what?
Top 5 mistakes
To
to
avoid.
Avoid.
Yeah. Well, I think the biggest mistake that I can think of right off the top of my head is when hiring a private provider for plan review services.
Mm-hmm.
This is hard to say, but I'm going to try to encapsulate it. Doing the actual plan review and doing the actual inspections, that part's easy. You've got your qualified folks that do the work. What surrounds the plan review, especially when it comes to the coordination of the permit, there is a whole administrative package that goes with that, and nuances associated with submitting for a permit that largely doesn't get attention. That things like having the notice of commencement properly recorded, having approved electronic signature and seal for the design team, having the contractors and subcontractors registered at the municipal level. That's biggest mistake. I'd say the second biggest mistake is making the assumption that having a private provider, well, they work for us, so they got to do what we say. I think that's a mistake simply because of the fact that private providers are still independently licensed, and Joe always gets on me for talking about this, but the reality is that municipalities have sovereign immunity. Private providers don't. So because we don't have sovereign immunity, we effectively have to guard our licensure that much closer because we can be sued. And so you can bet that the level of tenacity that we have to uphold the code is going to be as what you would get at the municipality or greater. There's my top two. I could think about three more, but I want to leave some room for Jay there. What are some of the mistakes that you see at your end, Jay?
I would say with the Type 5 construction is just focusing on the date in the beginning, and then just losing focus on the safety of the site and getting shut down. I mean, especially with Type 5 construction, of not paying attention to a lot of the details and just focusing on build. Let's go. And then, because remember, fire's going to go there early for your fire sprinkler roughing, right? And when they go there, they're going to see, wow, your site's a disaster. Let me call the supervisor, and I would get a call and go out there.
Right.
And that's we're going to have to send everybody home, which is the last thing anybody wants to do. But just focusing on moving as fast as you can without safeguards during construction. That was a big one, especially for Type 5 construction, which we see a lot in Florida for these large apartment complexes.
Got it.
One other thing that that I wanted to bring up, and I know we're getting ready to wrap up here in just a couple minutes. One huge mistake that I see a lot of our clients make. They're a lot of times being able to understand the municipal structure, what private provider is, all of the things that we've talked about today. There's a lot. It's a very complex subject. And a lot of times what can happen is that our clients will not necessarily they won't take the time to truly understand the complexity of the situation. But what can happen is when you don't entirely understand the complexity of the situation and you have a problem with the municipality is they have the advantage when it comes to optics. I'm trying to say this diplomatically, that effectively a building department can throw up their hands and the private provider will get the blame. And so it's very important. The mistake that I see from our clients is to assume private provider screwed up and watch the gap happen between the private provider and the client. It's such a mistake. It's very important for our clients, and we're your teammate, and we're here to navigate the waters of getting your permit, facilitating your inspections, your plan review, and getting you across the finish line. There is so much to be said for stay with your team, dance with the girl you came with. Basically, don't let frustration take over your relationship with your private provider. And I say that even for my competition as well. It's a tough business securing permits and facilitating construction. Just understand that there's going to be some confusion, and get to know the process and understand where your private provider really is valuable and use them as the tool that they're intended to be. And I don't know how to say that diplomatically without getting an HR complaint, but hopefully you understand where I'm coming from.
Got it. All right. Great information from both of you guys. And before we wrap up, I have one last question. Can a chief building official deny private provider?
The short answer is no. Mm-hmm. It is a statute that is put into place that it is 100% the decision of the owner developer, the owner's rep, or the owner's contractor. And so, yeah, that's a short and sweet, quick answer. Their job, a chief building official's sole job, is to gather the qualifications or the gather the qualified personnel that will be participating on a job and to make sure that paperwork is properly filed. Outside of that, no involvement from the municipality. That doesn't stop them from being involved, though. But from a strict interpretation of the, that's the extent of their ability to participate in the project once a private provider has been placed on the job.
Got it. All right. Thank you guys. Thanks for your time. Thank you everyone whoever joined this session. I don't know if people have some joining issue because we created some weird link, I know. But however, if anyone missed or anyone joined this session late, we recorded this session. This will be done into bits and pieces like question and answer, and it will be published onto our LinkedIn so that you all can watch it again. Whatever the question you have, you can simply save it for your next time as a reference. Okay? And thank you very much for joining. We'll come back with another informative session. Thanks, Jay. Thanks, Dave. And thank you, everyone.